I'm going to now invite Don Hall, who's going to speak on behalf of Pathways. Um, and I just know that it is a very special and busy weekend for Pathways this weekend. So thank you for making the time to come and to share this story with us. So, Don, over to you.
Thank you for this. Thank you for this opportunity. And yes, it is a busy time for Pathways. We're celebrating the Presbyterian Church 150 years here in Hamilton North. And St. Albans was a baby of St. David's, which was a baby of St. Andrew's, which is one way of multiplying, I guess. But there are some stories that we have to tell and we would like to share with you. But first is a little story about difference. A religious teacher asked her students to bring a symbol of their family's faith to class. She asked each student to come forward and share the symbol with the class. The first child, I'm a Muslim, this is my prayer rug. The second, I'm Jewish and this is my family's menorah. The third, I'm Catholic and this is my mum's rosary. The fourth, I'm Greek Orthodox and this is an icon of my patron saint. Fifth, I'm Presbyterian and this is my quiche. There's a certain irony in there. Pathways was originally three separate Presbyterian churches, St. Andrew's, St. Mark's, and St. David's. Have I got the clicker of you here? Yeah, it's all right. And those are the three churches as they were. St. Mark's was the last one to be formed, and it has struggled after losing their minister a few years ago, and they were diminishing in numbers, and financially it became difficult for them to be sustained. And so a twinning agreement was reached with St. Andrew's, with the full-time minister at St. Andrew's, and that occurred in 2004. The twinning was the new entity was called St. Mark's and St. Andrew's Presbyterian Parish. Over time, the finances were combined under one treasurer. And you can imagine with any organization like that, it's not all sweet sailing. There's always tensions. It's a bit like the two rival Presbyterian church elders passed each other in the street, and one thought, this is crazy. He said, good morning, go well in your ministry. And the other one said, I'll go well in the Lord's. There's a little bit of that happens when people come together, only it's covered with other things. But they worked all through their differences. St. David's Church was closed in 2016 due to earthquake risk. Hey, that earthquake came and brought a lot of changes, not always negative. It made us face up to some real issues. And their congregation, St. David's, was up in the Terrace End, the northern part of Palmerston North, and they began worshipping in Lichway Funeral Directors Building, the courtesy of the owner, who was a devout Anglican. And of course, there were people who would say, I'm not going to worship in a funeral director's chapel because of the connotations, forgetting that our churches have dead people in them frequently. Only some don't know that they're dead. In Easter 2017, St. Andrew's Church did not meet the church building standards, and it was closed. The difficulty with St. Andrew's, is it was also classed as a heritage building. And although there was funds and so on there, it wasn't not always enough. And it's not easy just to walk away from a heritage building. You need to provide some kind of support. And so it was faced with having to strengthen the building. And that became an issue in the growing church. But they worked through it. So they moved. So St Andrew's and St Mark's, the twin parish, went to Litchway, and the three congregations end up worshipping together. We've gone a bit too far. You know the old Sunday school song, don't you? Jesus bids us shine. It goes, you in your small corner and I in mine. There is a variation. You in your small corner and I in the middle of the room. And sometimes that can happen. I'm not saying it was all difficult. It wasn't. But it's also pulling a wool over our eyes not to recognize that sometimes when people come from different traditions, there are tensions, having to let something go. And the folk worked it out. Worshipping together for some 2 or 3 years at Litchway helped to work some of those things out. They had to, and they did. Their finances were combined. And again, the usual process of discussing differences and blending groups together was worked through over a period of time. Worshipping together facilitated getting to know each other. Together they wove a pulpit hanging as a visual acknowledgement of this weaving themselves together. And they called themselves Presbyterian when they decided that they would amalgamate Presbyterian New Church. New Church because it was a new venture, new path, new direction. And then after much debate and consultation, the congregation changed its name to Pathways Presbyterian Church. Pathways because pathway to God, pathway from the church. Pathways go both ways. The logo design was created, and it was done at no cost to us, fortunately, and then captured in pulpit hangings. In fact, if you ever go into St Andrew's in the next day or two and see the number of banners that are hanging where folk have made and expressed their faith through banners, was just amazing. The strengths of combining was the leadership. They has shared one full-time minister, although yours truly has been interim moderator now for the 3rd time in 10 years. Not had a very good success rate. I'm not available again. It was a time of sharing and strengthening of faith journeys together. It was a time of collaboration. We learned to work together to become one entity. Even though initially it was the worship centre at St Andrew's, St David's and St Mark's were the community workplaces for community ministry. Eventually St Mark's was taken over by a community church and they took over some of that work, and we sold that building and property to the city council, and that enabled other developments to happen. But the Terrace End is very much a community-based ministry with young people, preschoolers, with people meeting together. There was always something happening at St David's. 2 different groups. One group came where people just learnt skills, started to learn to speak English or to learn crafts and do crafts. Others just come together to meet. There was a worship that's called Kumbaya, and it was with those who were in community housing, and they were able to come together and worship in a place where there was acceptance and where they felt they were loved. And that's been working exceedingly very well. The differences, to me, was highlighted, not so much the differences, but it was despite differences was highlighted recently. I joined a group of ladies And first of all, I was the only male amongst the group. There was a Scot, there was a New Zealand European, a Korean, Japanese, Chinese, and Filipino in a small group of 6 so people gathered together. And I thought that was quite impressive, and that's what coming together is all about. Goodwill developed. Let's go back just a little bit. We were supported to develop a new parish mission plan, and the way we did that, instead of having, we got the Presbytery guy to come in and lead us through some various stuff, and that was helpful. We had big open, it really was, because it gave us a basis. Then we had open talk, and you know what happens? Come here, and you have an open forum. Probably about half a dozen people will speak, and everybody else will be quiet. We actually sent our plan to every group in the church, whether it be the choir, the knitting circle, whether the lighthouse, or whether it be whoever they were, to look at it and to discuss it and feedback. That way we had something like 85% contributing. Fantastic way of doing things. Took time, but was worthwhile. Various other things that came as a result. We ended up with a larger choir, and the choir sings virtually every second Sunday. There was combined expertise and a wide variety of personalities, as I shared before. And they're all singing from the same song sheet, though not always necessarily in tune, but that doesn't matter, does it? It says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. It doesn't ask for it to be tuneful. Initially, care was taken to ensure equal representation from each previous church in decision-making and work groups. Now that is not the case. We just get the best people for the job. Our congregation is now combined beautifully, and there is a lovely sense of unity when we gather. Pain, yes, it was. And the biggest pain was when the decision was finally made to spend money to not only strengthen St. Andrew's, but to redevelop the interior. And that was painful. It's not in my notes, but it was painful. But we worked through it. Yes, we lost some members. It meant a change of leadership, but the parish also came back together and worked through it. It is not an issue. And people who said they would never walk into St. Andrew's, we see quite regularly, which is lovely to see. Small group activities certainly helped. Goodwill developed over many years and has been retained and strengthened. We've welcomed new people into the church, which is good, and they're still working through what it means to be Christ-centered and community-facing. What did we learn? Well, Presbytery guidelines was helpful. The road is peppered with potholes, and you can't always avoid them. Pray frequently for God's guidance in negotiations. In the middle of the storm, Christ is still there. Take time. Ensure listening and respect of others' views. It can be lengthy, but it's worth it. Clarify each other's processes and how they might be refined and brought together. For example, we did that with our financial processes, and we're still doing that. Have social occasions together. And we've had that with meals and movie outings and the like. Not enough of them, but we're certainly looking forward to the social occasion tomorrow. Get the congregation involved in working together to create something that illustrates their new entity. And the parish has done that frequently through creating banners to express their faith. In fact, one of the things they do with their quilting is people that are in real need, and it's a sign of appreciation. And when they make the quilt for a particular individual, there are all these threads hanging out, and the congregation members go up and they tie a thread. It's a thread of prayer. So whoever gets the panel, the quilt, can see and feel those threads and know that there are many people contributing to it and they're not being lost. Embrace the diversity. It's the different shaped pieces that makes a jigsaw puzzle work. Activities are considered important where they've been and were retained. Patience. It's a long, unpredictable, and evolving journey, but it's a journey worth taking. And we have enjoyed the journey, and there's more to come. As we celebrate looking back, we will also take the opportunity to look forward. Thank you for your time.
I'm intrigued to know who the Presbytery person was that came to spend time doing work with you.